Hey everybody, I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time around here. And today we're celebrating the release of an upcoming book called Sacred Death, 25 Tools for Caregivers. This is a project led by Hamali Vora, and I really wanted to start the episode off by saying a huge thank you to her. Hamali, we would not be here without you and your beautiful mission for this book to help people talk about and understand death in a totally different, more powerful and more impactful way, in my opinion. This was a brave project to lead, and I'll speak for everyone by saying we're so honored to be a part of it. So here to help me with this important and powerful discussion are some of the authors of this amazing collaboration. Welcome, ladies. Nice to see you.
Hello, nice to see you.
Hello.
So Jill Mollenauer is an experienced yoga therapist as well as an end-of-life doula who serves people by utilizing these practices as a way of moving through life and transitioning through death. Kendall Williams is a dynamic shamanic practitioner and trainer who educates on the benefits of connecting us back to our shamanic roots and heart power, and whose powerful sessions and teachings wake us up from modern day stress, illness, and disempowerment, empowering us to tap into our unique medicine to heal ourselves. Shelleys Chapter has a full-time career as a marketing executive, is working on her first full-length book, and is an angel mom who passionately works to bring support and understanding to other parents who experience the loss of a child. She can be reached via her public Facebook page called the Maddie's Smile Project, which was created in her daughter's memory. And of course, listeners, I know you're hearing the power of the people I have in this room already. I'm gonna have them hooked up below in the show notes with their pages and their websites and everything, so you can take a next step later. So I'm going to start with you, Jill. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Well, hi, everyone, first of all. It was amazing to hear about Shelly's background as well as Kendall's background. So let's see. I am chapter 12, short but sweet, how yoga changed my life. There are far too many benefits to the practice, but my favorite quote that's also in my chapter is, if you can breathe, you can do yoga. And so even right now, if you just take like a deep breath in, like even for me, like I need a moment because I'm nervous. So like take like a deep breath in and let it go. And it just settles the nervous system. And so many things these days are about stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system and relieving the sympathetic nervous system. So I go into a lot of that in my chapter, and how yoga has become for me a way of life. It's a lifestyle. It's how I live my life. And part of yoga is also how you contemplate your death. And that has gently transitioned me into also serving people, being an end-of-life doula, which is honoring death as a part of life and not something to be feared. And quite honestly, within yoga, that is what you do on a regular practice. In Shavasana, in corpse pose, you are there to contemplate your life and your death. And so that's my chapter goes into a little bit more detail of that, and also some different postures that can really help ease our nervous system and ease the other systems of our body, because everything in our body and everything within all of us is connected. And yoga is a good way to remind us of that. So that's it in a nutshell.
I love how you just opened up a discussion for every person who has been to a yoga class, practiced yoga. I cannot remember any teacher opening up their class by saying, today we're going to talk about death. and it's funny, not funny, because I mean that it's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
no, to that point, it's taken me several years of, I didn't start off, 14, 15 years ago saying, hey, class, we're going to talk. Like, I didn't really think about that. But my path of yoga has led me in that direction where I'm finally to the point with my students to say exactly what you just said, Laura, and to say, another one of my favorite quotes is, we come into this world on an inhale, we leave this world on an exhale. And so what we do with those breaths in between matter. And yoga, if you move into a yoga class, which I won't go into what I feel a lot of the times we've done to yoga. Another one is yoga is a work in and not a work out. And so, yoga is, as I stated many times already, that it is a path and it is a way we live our lives. And so it's taken me a while to get to that place, but I actually have said that in class before. But it took me a bit to be like, okay, we are going to talk about death today. We are going to contemplate how we live our lives breath by breath. So,
okay, I want to come to your class. I mean, seriously, like as a healer, you really enjoy walking into a class and hearing something that makes you think, whoa, this is going to be totally freaking amazing. And you're also making me think about my martial arts journey, because it's a lifelong practice and it affects every single thing in your life, including the end of it and your thoughts about death and how you go into that time of your life.
yes. And I will say to your point too, Laura, that what I try to get my students to do is, another quote. These are all things, none of us steal from each other. We borrow from each other. It's like, I'm not taking this from somebody, I'm sharing it with somebody else. And so one of my favorite teachers also has said, when you come to a class, that is your lesson, but your practice is really, as I've said in my chapter, your spine has 5 movements. And if you move your spine in those movements every day, backward bending, forward folding, twisting, side stretching, and then sitting, the whole idea is to move the energy flow of your body so that you can sit in a state of, in a meditative state. So you come to a class, great, but what you do off of your mat and maybe unrolling your mat or just getting on your hands and knees on the floor and moving your spine, that's a practice. So it isn't about, I got to 5 yoga classes this week. Like, that's impossible for me. So, but doing it on a daily, on your own, 5 minutes.
I love it, Jill. Thank you. And I'm going to just quickly say thanks to all of you for stepping up. You can hear it in how Jill is talking about her chapter, these beautiful chapters you wrote. And thank you for stepping up to share the authentic story, first of all. But what you readers are going to get as a gift is a practical experience. So these master teachers are stepping up and they're going to give you an experience in the chapter with one of the tools or those lessons or whatever those things are. And I can't wait for you to read some of those things and really experience them. So I thank all of you for doing that so brilliantly. Y'all are amazing. Kendall, let's talk about your chapter.
Hi, everyone. My chapter is chapter 19, and the name of my chapter is Unpacking a Life. And I have really worked in healing with shamanic work and volunteered in death and dying with the hospice journey for quite a while. But the chapter is about a personal journey for me with one of my close girlfriends who had cancer, and then ultimately in a very short period of time went from the cancer journey to the terminal journey. And at that time of my life, I had experienced assisting death and dying from more of a practitioner view, whereas this was a very personal journey, and being a very personal journey with a friend who was the same age as me, whose children were the same age as my children. It was a very confronting experience and a deeply moving experience and a very chaotic experience, because it came so fast and we were all so unprepared on that personal level. So I'm really passionate about writing this chapter because it was how we navigated through that journey and gave each other discovered ways of unpacking a life in a short period of time, which I felt that with all the celebrations we have and all the rituals and the ceremonies we have in Western culture, which is where I really work, we don't really have any instructions on how to unpack our life. And when we're put in a situation of trauma or an unexpected illness or an event, we often don't have tools to know what to do and how to assist. And there's so many emotions to be unpacked and so many roles to be unpacked, like just being a mum, and how do you let that go? How do you let your children go? How do you deal with family? How do you deal with the pressure of everybody else's needs? So my chapter was really about that journey and all of the beautiful sort of intuitive guidelines we were given to assist us in helping us through a very difficult process. Yeah.
You mentioned something that's been coming up in several of our interviews, and that is the juggle that you have to maneuver when you are a mom or an entrepreneur or whatever is going on in your normal life already. And all of the sudden you're dealing with this other huge thing. And boy, this takes self-care, the self-care chat to a whole nother level, right? In terms of that. Is there anything else you want to say about that juggling thing?
Yeah, I think that you really highlighting a major part of what the book is about for all of us on a deep level, and that self-care is being able to put some structure and process into being able to survive the situation yourself, but also help the person that is passing or going through that with their own level of self-care. So finding tools to create balance through that process rather than ending up after the process with nothing left, because the person is whoever you are caregiving to, you are on a road for when their journey is going to be ending, but your journey is going to continue. So helping you navigate that path of self-care so you don't lose yourself in the process, and having boundaries and parameters and roles to assist you in coping with the pressure, I think, of the situation. Yeah. So
Oh
they're
my gosh,
valuable.
yes. A powerful book. I keep saying it over and over, but this is going to redefine what we've been taught about our grieving process and what all the supposed tos and the shoulds, and then also giving us the survival guide. You said it, surviving through. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you.
Shelley, tell us about your amazing chapter.
Hi, everybody. I really appreciate everyone listening to us. And I agree with Laura that so much of this is going to be valuable to many people. My chapter is chapter 21. It's called Grieving Out Loud When There Are No Words. And Kendall, I really resonated with what you just said, because I am that person that lost my daughter 8 years ago in a sudden way. She was a 16-year-old and was in a head-on car collision, and actually was the driver of the other car was a very close friend of hers. So, the shock that happens at that point and how you choose to deal with it is really a lot about what my chapter is about. I chose writing as my tool, and I like to write, so it comes naturally to me, but I ended up in the process of grieving, really trying to find a way to reach out to a lot of people. I had a ton of support from individuals. I didn't want to talk to each of them. It was too emotional for me. So I took to writing, almost blogging on Facebook. And what came out there was my words, and they were very authentic. That's one of the things I encourage people to be as authentic and honest as you can be. every day is a roller coaster, and it goes on for quite a while when you're grieving. And I just think the one thing you want to do is open yourself, because when you do, what you get back is so powerful. I got more support. I've met new people from several countries through various friends, the way it kind of branched out from my writing. And that's what my chapter is. It's encouraging people to be authentic and be open.
So, Shelley, I mean, we have a little joke about this book that you better invest in some Kleenex as you
Yep.
pick it up.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your particular story. Thanks for being brave about that. Even as corny as it might sound, about that Facebook posting, about being unapologetic about your own process and what you needed to do. People, of course, will come at us and they'll try to judge the process, but how can we even do that when it's so individual? What else do you want to say about that?
I think you're spot on about that. The unapologetic part, I definitely was that. I definitely did get criticized, especially the further into my journey I got. I still post now. Now it's not as frequent, but when you put yourself out there, I still think the benefit that you get back is much, much stronger than the pain that you have to go through. You know, they heard about what Maddie was a twin. She was an identical twin, and they heard about her sister's first day back at school, what that was like for her. She had never gotten on the bus alone. And I think just wanting everybody to understand the journey that you're going through and how incredibly painful it is, but also how much gratitude you feel for the support that you get.
Yeah, amazing. You guys, you know, what I love the most about hearing you all talk about the story that you've shared and the lessons and tools and strategies that you're offering, as well as y'all know there's like so many different kinds of people in the world, and they're going to need to hear the messages in many different ways. So I think one of the biggest gifts of what we're doing here, even with the interviews, and then of course the book, is we're offering all of those different kinds of ways to hear something. You guys know that like you could hear it 10 times from 10 different people, but the 11th person, the way they said it was the way that woke you up and you heard it, you know, that 11th time. So again, this is a thank you to you guys for coming in and really expressing your unique voice in this collaboration, and really a big, big gift that we're going to be giving our readers. So Kendall, I'm going to move to you with this question that I'm going to get around to all of you for, and it is just simply, what do you remember about what you learned about death growing up?
Nothing really. Like it was something far away. It was something that kids weren't really invited to or spoken to about. And I think the only really understanding I had of it was you have a funeral, and you know, people go to a funeral and that's how you say goodbye. And that's one thing I was really passionate about trying to get across in my chapter, because, you know, unpacking a life is what happens between like a diagnosis or a situation and a funeral. And it's almost like we're missing this whole part, and no one discusses it. No one talks about it. And I don't think we were educated in any way on death and dying. It was something that was not talked about, or not, or you see the discomfort in people as soon as we talk about mortality or death, and no one wants to upset anyone. So it's almost like this sense of keep it over there type of conversation. That's the experience I had. Yeah.
I think you and a lot of people had the similar experience. And again, just, talking about why we're all here talking about this particular topic. That's one of the reasons. I want parents and teachers and mentors and coaches to hear this, so that as their kids that they're serving are moving through the same experiences we all are moving through in terms of the death of loved ones around us, that there can be the conversations, right? It's so important. What else did you want to say about that, Kendall?
I think also, there's this perception that only old people die. Like we all just get old and we die, and we just I don't know if it's because of, media and television, how we perceive death to be. And in our societies, especially Western society, unlike the shamanic world, we're so out of touch. We don't have people die at home. You go to hospital to get fixed. And I think we really need to have that some sort of connection back to process. And we're really missing that process, because when it comes to people today, like with my girlfriend and her family and friends, there was so much shock involved and so much confusion over what to do, that there was a lot that's lost in those moments, because we don't have a game plan, but we seem to have a game plan for everything else. So I 100% agree with you. I feel like this needs to be, we're all going to die and we don't know when we're going to die. So we should be, even if we can just crack through, this book helps crack through having more conversations, and not necessarily having every decision made, but having conversations, so you don't feel like you're bringing a negativity to a room because you want to talk about something that every single human being on this planet is going to face at some point in their life. So I think the book is an incredibly powerful tool for that, and such a collection of stories, because death happens in so many different ways to so many different cultures and so many different people and so many different situations and age groups and experiences. And it's always going to be personal, always. So.
For sure. Thank you, Kendall. Shelley, what do you want to add to this in terms of what you might have learned growing up?
I think I concur with Kendall. I would add that you hear a lot about the 5 stages of grief. You hear a lot about a timeline, which there is a timeline, there's an ending right after the funeral, where there's an expectation that things go back to normal. And I really don't think they do, even beyond the family. I think they extend out to friends. The 5 stages of grief is for me, there's no order. There's a lot of chaos. I definitely shock. And sometimes you won't do 2 of the 5, you won't experience those stages of grief, or you'll experience one of them so much later and you'll recognize it. So, it was very much like Kendall said, there's a funeral. For me, growing up, it was a religious ceremony and then back to normal. But I can tell you from experience, it extends. I'm 8 years out from my shock and awe, and I still have days where I feel some anger or, some pity on myself, and other days that I feel really powerful.
You're making me think about just mostly because of what you just said about 8 years have moved by. And so even if it wasn't a death experience, let's just talk about any life experience,
Yep.
Traumatic, even joyful. We could be talking about anything. It's that in our moment, how we're hearing it, thinking about it, expressing it to other people is part of who we are and part of then who we become. So why do we shove death into a box over here? Why do we do that, right? And not have it be that same type of thing, even that looking at the entire spectrum at once, from tragedy and trauma all the way to ecstatic joys. Big question, I know.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
I can tell you, having been in it, when you wake up in the morning, if you have children, you think about them. And when one of them dies, it still happens every single morning. So I talk to people about how much of a choice it is for me every day. Every single day I wake up and say, how am I going to honor my daughter? How am I going to handle it if someone asks me a question about her? At this point, I love to hear about it. And I always encourage openness. You know, I'll hear some story I haven't heard, but I think that for the most part, I just try to be incredibly honest with people. If they ask me how I'm doing, I say, not so great today. And that's me talking from 8 years out. I mean, I still have those days.
Yeah. Perfect and beautiful awareness. I'm going to come around to you guys in a minute, and we're going to talk about the awareness practice that's behind a lot of what you guys are talking about. But Jill, let me get to you with this same question. What do you remember learning growing up about this?
I'm just going to echo your other authors here that it was not really talked about. So when I wish I could remember when I really started. I think it was not too long ago when I really started contemplating in yoga with actually what Shavasana or corpse pose meant. I never thought about it. I didn't have a lot of people around me that passed. And I'll add this, that this to Kendall's point, 9 out of 10 people would really rather die at home and be honored. And it's a difficult, so my kids think I'm insane because I do talk about death. I do, I have an app on my phone actually that it gives you a quote every day, 5 times a day. And the app is called We Croak. And so 5 times a day, the little thing comes up on my phone. It says, don't forget you're going to die, quote of the day. And the idea is to not fear it. And I think wrapping our heads around it, by the sounds of it, hasn't happened until this time in our lives, because it wasn't talked about as growing up. It was just sort of shoved aside as something to echo Shelley and Kendall, to be either feared or not talked about. And then this past year, 2020 has sort of hit a lot of people in the face with it, and myself included. My sister-in-law passed in 2020, and not due to COVID, but due to a different illness. But it was sudden, it was quick, and it wasn't honored the way it could have been, should have been. And I think honor is the word that just keeps coming to my head, that we need to honor it as a part of life, because as Kendall said earlier, it's going to happen to all of us. So it's kind of absurd to me that it hasn't been, that people don't talk about it and want to hush it or push it aside. And as I said, it was not, growing up, it wasn't even as you said, you went to maybe a funeral and that was it. But it really needs to be something that is almost cherished, but definitely honored. So.
Well, hence our title, Sacred Death. And oh my gosh, you guys heard it here first. There's a We Croak app. Really? Like,
it's awesome.
Oh my gosh, that is a first on me. Thank you for that little moment today. Okay, so Shelley, I'm coming back to you because I talked about the awareness, and this is the next question to all of you. And this is a really big one. And I know we could be here all day with this. However, awareness is everything. It's the foundation for everything when it comes to understanding what's possible on this little journey that we're on of life and death and the grief we experience. So what do you want to share about your own awareness practice and the importance of it during all of this?
The single most important thing I learned is when you share, you get back in spades gifts. And they come in many, many ways. Some people will thank you for helping them understand what to say in the situation. Some people will tell you that you've empowered me to speak. You've empowered me to write. Awareness on all the little difficulties that people encounter as they go through the grieving process. I think people are surprised that it lasts as long as it does. I think they understand better. You know, you've all heard them, people say she's changed, or he's changed, or they need to move on. And I didn't have any of that. I mean, you know, I just didn't let anyone have any of that. I would say, you know, I feel like what I've learned through the past is that I should already be better by now. And the definition of better, I attacked, because I do think I got better. I readjusted my priorities in life. I was much more empathetic of other people, understanding that they look like they're doing great. They sound like they're doing great. They've probably got something going on in their life that isn't great. So just to be kind, just to be kinder. That was a lot of what I learned. That was my awareness.
So huge. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the perspective, when Jill mentioned that app and then what the message was every day, I thought, yes, like I want to remember.
Yes.
And we all need the reminders every day to live like that. Right?
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I actually wrote it down when she said it, the we croak, because I'm going to check it out. I think when you are forced to hear something, like if I got that 3 times a day, that we croak app, it's going to force me to
5 times. She's
Yeah, 5
reminding
times.
you.
Yeah. I think it's going to force me to process. And I think I'm always working on feeling better, getting better, helping others with what they're going through. And your point is good. There's loss of many kinds. It isn't just death. I belong to an angel mom group, and one of the ladies in there has just, her daughter ran away.
Mm.
And to her, she's going through the same and also very different emotions that the rest of us are. But she still has to wake up every day and wonder where her daughter is. And my heart goes out to people for the various things that they deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. Thank you, Shelley. Okay, Jill, what do you want to add to this awareness conversation? So how was that for you on your journey, and what was important about that?
So repeat that, like what was important about what exactly?
Well, so I think awareness is everything in terms of the opportunities it gives us in any moment. And it's that practice and discipline that we create for ourselves that really matters. And I just want to hear about your own personal journey with that practice.
With the practice of awareness? Well, and to your point, I'm not trying to plug the app at all, but it's essential because it's not mine. But like essentially, it's really talking about how it brings us joy every day to appreciate the life we have every day. We have in weird ways in our Western culture of saying getting through the week, or it's Monday, or TGIF, or hump day went. Like so many phrases to just get through, to push through, and to not really be in the present moment. So with my journey with yoga, and also yoga has a lot to do with non-attachment. There's nothing, everything in life changes. So it's really hard for us to have that letting go process. And in fact, it's just it's a phrase. Like I literally have a coffee mug that somebody gave me. It was a lovely gift and I appreciate it so much because it was a gift to me, but it's like, let that shit go. And that's great. But the whole process of the practice of yoga, the journey of it is letting go, is non-attachment, is living in as much as we can in the present moment, because it truly is a gift. And so I'm not certain if that answers your question, but the more I travel this path, the more I think I'm connected with myself, because ultimately yoga does mean to union, to bring together, to yoke. When you have more connection with yourself, you are going to have just your more profound connections with other people, like to really be in that moment, to have a conversation and really listen to someone, and not think of how I'm going to answer what they're saying or share my own story, but to really listen and to really be as present as I possibly can in each moment. So again,
Yes.
I'm not certain that answers your question.
Of course
Laura.
it does.
Yes.
Of course it does. And that's the whole thing is, I may call that awareness. Y'all may call it something else. Jill does a yoga kind of lifestyle. That is an awareness practice. We all have our things that we call it and our ways. And that's why it's so important to talk about it in all the different kinds of ways. So yes, Jill, thank you. You're brilliant. You are all so amazing and such badass warriors on this journey. And it is so my honor to be playing in the sandbox with all of you. Kendall, you are going to close us out on this topic today. So talk to me about your personal practice and how important that's been to you.
Okay, so for me, my work was about healing myself originally, and that was bringing back my understanding of me and reconnecting my faith in spirit and myself. So going through the process, the death process with my girlfriend, where it really changed my awareness on an even deeper level. I think you can't go through any death process and not learn so much about your truth of you, because going through the dying process with whether it's a family member or a friend, or it's even your own journey that you're doing, it just strips away all the bullshit. It just completely strips it away. And there's so many treasures in that journey, as much as there was so much pain. But the one thing that always sticks with me more than anything was when I started my personal journey to get well after sort of losing myself a bit on the everyday life. I felt this sense of loneliness, even though I had these beautiful husband and beautiful children and everything to be grateful for. But I felt like a bit of me was missing. And that journey of awareness and of my spirituality and learning wellness helped me grow that through that. But when my girlfriend passed, and those moments with her before she died, and being her personal death coach, was those raw moments of friendship where conversations were had that would never be had if anyone else was in the room, and this incredible sense of truth and connection. They are the most golden moments of my life, because they reminded me why I started the journey. I started the journey because at the end of it, we all crave this beautiful, gracious sense of connection with each other, where we're all on a level playing field, and we're all heading the same way. So my awareness is really about, you can feel like you don't have enough in you to get through these situations, but there's something inherently so beautiful, spiritual and human within us that connects us in those moments. And be brave and show up, because you can't unedit yourself after you go through these situations. And it makes you a better human. It makes you a better person, and everything's colors are brighter, conversations are sweeter, moments are more important. And I think in the society we live in, which is so busy and so crazy and drives me insane most days, but those moments are just, that's the beauty we're all looking for. And it's strange to think that the thing we're all so scared of in death is actually what opens it up. It opens up that there's nowhere else to go but there at that point. So my awareness is probably the beauty that death actually brings as well for us. Yeah.
Beautifully said. And you've been giving me
Thank you.
goosebumps, so thank
Oh.
you.
I
Go ahead, Jill.
I just really want to quickly say, I actually wrote down, Kendall, what you said. You've said it several times when you talk about unpacking your life. That's it. I love that phrase. I'll probably borrow it at some point in time, because I think it's a beautiful way of saying, that towards the end. So that's it. I just wanted to say that.
And Jill, I'd love to see you start a yoga workshop on unpacking your life, and you can go from movements to movements.
There we go. Collaboration right here in the interview. Oh my gosh. And this is how it's been, everybody. These kinds of people, this kind of energy, this kind of wisdom. I'm super grateful for all of you. Authors, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to make sure our listeners don't forget that August 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern is our live stream book launch party for Sacred Death, 25 Tools for Caregivers. All right, that's going to be on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page, and I've hooked you up below with that. All of our authors will be there sharing their wisdom, and we're going to have some pretty fun giveaways for our book purchasers that day as well. And if you're listening to this after August 17th, well, get on over to Amazon, because that means the book is ready for you to grab your copy. We also have an incredible opportunity for you all to continue this conversation. If you go over to Facebook and look up the Sacred Death Community Group, you're going to be able to join and ask questions of these authors and be in there and have these amazing conversations. I know not everybody has those kinds of people around them to talk about it. Sometimes you're getting criticized or you're just getting shut down. So come on in, because we're ready for you. And lastly, today, everybody, remember, your brave words will change the world. What if that thing you're still a little afraid to share is exactly what someone needs to hear to change or even save their life? It's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.